Okay, so here we have a list of widgets that's being rendered with data that is coming from the server as opposed to hard-coded data in our JSON file, right? So let's explore a little further on how we could perhaps be able to add new widgets, remove widgets, or update existing widgets, and let's see what we can do. Right? So let's take a look at perhaps being able to create a new widget. So we'll need an input field. We'll need a maybe a button so that we can create a new widget. So let's take a look at that. Right? So for instance, in the list component right now, we have a UL where we're rendering all the widgets. What we could do is perhaps just have a button that if we click that button, we can kick off the rest of the mechanism to create these new widgets. Right? So let's do that. I'll add here a button. Right, that says create, and that's the button down below here. There it is. And when we click on create, we would like to maybe notify that something occurred. Right. So again, the only way for this component, which is a stateless component, it's a stateless component. Notice that I don't have state anywhere. Right. The only way for it to enact anything to happen is to invoke outside and notify that some action happened, right, and let everybody else handle whatever needs to be done, right? The container will be responsible for doing this, right? So let's do this. If we have an onClick, we're going to notify this .props something like create widget, right? So presumably somebody's passing us through the properties a function that we want to invoke, and here it is. It's bound to this button. Okay, right? So we can go back to the container, right? Always now it's going to be between the component and the container. Container, right? The component is dumb, right? It's only provided data that's going to render, right? It doesn't handle any of its state. It doesn't handle any of its event handlers, right? It always notifies the container, which is proper design anyway. Right, we handle everything inside of the container. All right, so here we are. One of the properties is create widget. We're going to map that. Here's our property to dispatch mapper. We're going to map create widget that's coming from the component. We're going to notify some function. Some function. So what should we do here? Well, again, we could go out to the server. Right, we could. Go out to the server and say, hey, create a widget for me and return to me the brand new widget so I can render the new widgets. Yes? All right, so let's do that. Right? Presumably, it would exist instead of the web services. All right, so let's do that. Presumably, this would be widget service, then dot create widget, right? And create widget probably takes a default object of the widget that I want to create. Right? So maybe it will be something like a default title, some title, and the title might be actually is there a title or name? I forget. The data model for widgets we have name, type, and ID. All right, so let's do that. So the name, maybe we'll go with some generic name such as new widget. And we can then edit it, right, as editing the widget. So it'll give us a chance to play around with that. We'll start off with an ID. We can generate a unique identifier either here or on the server, right? We can say maybe new date and then get time. That returns all the milliseconds since 1970 or something, whatever, some long number. And then the type, maybe we could go off with by default, they're all headings by default. Okay, so type might be heading. Okay, right? That's going to do what? In the service, the widget service that create, instead of pushing into this hard-coded array of widgets, instead it should go out to the server, right, and send the widget down to the server, post to this server. All right, so let's do that. Let's do a we're going to do a fetch. Right? It's going to look just like this. look just like that, right? But the difference is that it's not going to be a get, right? A fetch, the default method is to do a get, right? Here we're going to do a post. Again, following best practices in RESTful web services is that when we create, we use post, right? And then we use a URL with the noun of whatever it is that we are creating, right? So here we're going to override, and we're going to say that the method is not going to be get, instead it's going to be post. We also need to provide and pass along the actual widget, right? The data that we're going to send, the payload, right? So to do that, we are going to use the body. We're going to pass it as part of the body, the HTTP body that's going to be sent over. We're going to need to stringify it, convert this JSON object into a string representation, right? That's going to be sent over the wire, and hopefully Java will interpret this JSON string and then instantiate a Java object on the other side. Yes? Right? So to do that, we're going to use JSON stringify, which is going to convert the widget into a string. Now we need to tell the server how to interpret this string. It's not just any string, right? It's just not just any text. Instead, we're going to tell the server to interpret this content. Should be interpreted content as the following type. It should be interpreted as a application JSON. Right, so this is a standard MIME type, right? That we can use to identify the type of the content that's going across the wire. Make sense? So this is going to kick off the Java to know, right, to interpret this string, not just like any string, to say, oh, this is an actual data, right? And then it'll know to map it to an equivalent Java object. Everybody okay? Right? All right. Let's see. On the server side, let's look at the server side. On the server side, here's my controller, and here's my map. Here's my create widget. There it is, right? So that presumably this is the function that I'm hitting. Yes? I'm hitting this create widget, right? That's the post. That's the API widget, right? So that presumably this is the function that I'm going to kick off. What is it doing? It's parsing the widget from the request body, hopefully from a JSON object that I'm passing. Right? It's going to add it to the list of widgets, and then it's going to return the new list of widgets containing my brand new widget in there. Yes? Okay. So on the client, hopefully what I'm getting back in the response, right, is this new list of widgets. Yes, which I'm going to parse again from a string into a JSON. From a string in the body, I'm going to convert it into a JSON object, and whoever calls this, right, they can receive the new list of widgets. Make sense? Right, so we need to kick off this create widget. Who's kicking it off right now? The container is. There it is, create widget. Right? And what comes back is a promise with the new widgets. Right, with the new brand widgets, hopefully with this new widget in there. So we can say then, this then here is going to come back with, again, the same widgets, which I'm going to copy this. Same thing here. Right? And I'm going to say, then, these are the widgets. I'm going to notify the reducer that says that I've just created a widget. Create widget. And I'm passing the new widgets. Yes? Right? So going back to the reducer is going to say create widget. What's a create? This is it, right? That's where it's going to handle the action.type. What should it do? You should update again the same return, And we'll notice that most of the reducer's responsibility now, it's very reduced, right? Because all this state is not even being handled by the reducer. Right? The state is all being handled by the server. We're only using the reducer, the mechanism of the reducer, as a mechanism to propagate the state across all the providers, right? The containers, and then down to the components. Yes? Right? That's all really we're using. It is not even a responsibility for the reducer to do anything with this state. Just notify everybody else. Yes? Right? Now, we could take another approach and do, instead of notifying every single time to the server, right, we could do some caching here on the client. Yes? maybe create a couple widgets, edit them, yada yada yada, handle everything on the reducer on the client side, and only when we click save, then take all those changes, right, and then send them over to the server. That certainly could be an option, right? In that case, then the reducer would have a bigger part, yes, right, where it's handling some cached version here on the client, and then from time to time, either on demand or every 30 seconds or whatever, right, would then send one big changes over to the server. Make sense? Either way, whichever you want to go with. Some students prefer, this is a very chatty implementation. You might prefer a less chatty, more caching on the client. Anyway, notice that because create widget and find widgets, they both do the same thing, right? We can use the shortcut syntax of the case, the switch case, to basically, if it's this or this, then they both are returning the widget's state. Yes? All right. All right. So let's try it out. Let's. Here's our create, and let's hit create, and it died. Cannot read property then of undefined. So widget service. Widget service. Let's see. That's in the container, right? List container line 14. Create service. Create widget. Widget service. So is it not called widget service? Is it not called widget create widget?
You're going to need to get an instance of it. They have widget service.
I thought I had an instance. Oh, I see. See the curly brackets? So if it's a curly bracket, then I would have to explicitly say return. It's not returning anything, right? So I either put the explicit return or remove the curly brackets, and then it becomes an implicit return. Okay? Let's try it again. Create something else. This.props widgets.map. So let's see. Did it? No, let's try it again. So no errors. What's that one error there? What's this? Each child is missing a key. So somewhere we're missing a key, probably in the component where we're iterating over this. So this li probably needs a key. So let's do a key here, and this will be widget.id. And let's try it again, and we will hit this. Let's see. Type error, yada yada yada, not a function. Occurred. Network. Let's see. Widgets. Ooh, I'm getting something from the server. Unsupported media type. Application JSON. JSON S. What? JSON S. JSON S. Oh, JSONs. Okay. Okay, let's try it again. Create. Okay, we got a new widget, right? So it went out to the server added it, and now we have this, and we can create any number of widgets. There we go. Everybody still with me? Everybody okay? All right, excellent.